Hello and welcome everyone to the Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with your host me, Sam Peterson. Good to see everyone in the chat. Welcome on in. We are on challenge 7, I believe, today, and we're going to be doing a cool portal effect, so I'm looking forward to that. Good to see everyone in the chat, by the way. Hello and welcome. We got Norsh, Sean, Steve, Ted, General Kenobi, of course, our moderator Wade, I saw him in there. RB, Frank, Carol. Good to see everyone. Welcome on in. Just a heads up, if you're new to these challenges, we do 2 weeks of challenges and then 2 weeks of replays. So this is week 2 of 2, but if you're watching and it says Creative Encore down at the bottom, that means this is a replay of a previous stream. So we do 2 weeks of live, 2 weeks of replays, and that gives you a month total to work on these challenges. And feel free to join and post them anytime in the Discord during that month-long period. And if you aren't part of the challenges, let me show you how to do that. So you just want to go over to this landing page here. It is behance.net/challenge/Photoshop. And at the top, you'll see a big blue button that you can click on to register. It'll say, hi, take the challenge. And if you scroll down, you'll see all of the challenges that have currently been revealed. So we are not at the end yet, but we're getting really close. Only 2 left after today. But today is the portal effect. We're going to be making a portal using some gradient maps. Some of you may have seen this technique before. We're going to be using a little bit for this one. And we're going to be masking some photos and creating kind of a cool little portal effect. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. And if you want to join these challenges and you want feedback, you want to share your designs, all that good stuff, you can head over to the Discord. We have a Discord community here, tons of people in it. And if you want to share, you want to go over to this feedback section here on the left and you'll see challenge. So like I said, for the past, or the next month basically, or a few weeks I guess at this point, you can share any of the challenges that are currently going on here. We got some awesome entries from people. And as always, love seeing what you guys come up with for each one of these. And if you want to ask any questions, you're having technical issues with Photoshop, we have an Ask a Question section. There's a Design Other for sharing your own personal designs that aren't related to these challenges. We got our mentors in the chat giving feedback, Ted, Valder. I'm giving a little feedback myself as well. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. So let's jump into, let me move this over here. Make sure this is loaded. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Here we are. So here we are in Photoshop. This is the starter file. You can click that down below. It's in the description. And we're going to be making a portal effect out of this image. I can show you what a finished one looks like. Bam. So that's kind of what we're going for today. So to create that, basically you need to start out with two images. One, that the landscape that we're going to be putting the portal in, and another landscape that the portal is showing. So if you want to do that, you can use these asset files that I gave. I like it because one is a night scene, one is a day scene, and one's a city scene, one is a mountainscape. So I like how they're contrasting. I didn't do tileable textures, I'm so lazy. Well, Frank, if you do, definitely tag me. I'm always excited to see what Frank's up to. And thanks for posting those links, Wade. So you can use any photos you want, but I thought that was pretty cool. So the assets I provided were this one. And actually, I provided 2. Personally, I kind of like this one. I like the color contrast. So I'm just going to select that, do Command or Control J to duplicate it and bring it out of that asset group. So we can use that. And then change this color back to there. So what I want to do first is I want to mask my my background image here. Well, I should have a better name for this. So just double click that to unlock it. I'm going to put mountain and I'm going to put city just to keep it organized. And I'm going to turn off that assets folder. I don't want that in my way. So what we're doing here is we want to select the Elliptical Marquee tool. You can press M to hotkey, Shift M to scroll through the different marquee tools. And I'm just going to drag a marquee here. Now, if you drag something and you like the size of it, but you want to move it, you can actually just press spacebar, hold on spacebar, and drag it there. Then resize, hold on spacebar. So a lot of people don't know this tip. It's super helpful. You don't have to drag things perfectly. like some people sometimes think you do. You can just hold on spacebar. So I like that. That looks pretty good. This little rectangle button at the bottom here, this is the mask tool. So I'm gonna, whoops, I did that too soon. So when you mask, it's gonna keep the area you have selected. So I'm gonna do Command Control Z, and then I'm gonna do Command Control Shift I to invert the selection. That's the hotkey for inverting the selection. And then I'm gonna press that. So now it masks out everything else except for that circle. So that looks pretty cool. From here, what I wanna do is I wanna move this mountain image around to get like the perfect framing. So I'm gonna right click the mountain layer and do convert to smart object because we're gonna be resizing or we're gonna be doing that kind of thing, and I wanna retain the information in case we need to resize it again. For me, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna make it like as small as possible until the top and bottom are almost going out of frame so I can get the most information. And I'm gonna kind of scan this just for the most scenic looking area. And personally, I really like this. I like that trail and I like that mountain. So I think that looks good. So that's my framing. I like how that looks. There, portal effect done, guys. It's a good challenge today. I kid. We're gonna add a lot more to this. We're gonna add some magic stuffs. So let's add, this is just for a glow. You don't really need this, but let's do it. I'm gonna select the ellipse tool down here. U is the hotkey, and we're gonna be using that spacebar trick again. I think Wade was saying that's really useful. I find it very useful because a lot of times people try to copy what they did before, right? But you can't quite get it, so you have to draw it over and over. But no, you just hold on spacebar, reposition, resize with the mouse. Actually, that looks pretty good. I'll spacebar to the left a little bit. And that's pretty decent, I think. From here, I'm actually going to go back to my ellipse tool, make sure I have that selected. I'm going to make the stroke, I'm going to make it like 1 pixel. We don't really need the line. I just want the glow from it. So I'll leave it white at 1 pixel, no fill. You can see at the top there's no fill. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm just going to add an outer glow. So the outer glow is really the effect I want from this shape. Your settings are going to be different by default, but I have mine at 80% opacity, 15% spread, and the size is all the way maxed out at 250 pixels. So the spread you don't need too high, but the size is really going to determine like how far that glow is extending. Blend mode is screen, I think I said that. You can check those settings, click OK. And now we got a nice little glow, so it's kind of like setting the frame of it. All right. So from here, let's go ahead and create that magical effect. Now, some of you might remember this effect from the magical gradients tutorial. We're going to be using that same technique to kind of create this portal. So the thing is, when I've seen portal effects in the past, just like Photoshops and stuff like that, a lot of times people are using pre-made assets, and that's fine. A lot of times the pre-made assets are like a long exposure when someone's spinning a sparkler or something like that, so it creates this glowing ring. There's various like kind of portal looking assets you could probably look up and find online. Some of them are probably 3D generated, and that's totally cool. I also think it's really cool to be able to like shoot your own if you create your own with long exposures. But I think this is a neat technique, so you aren't stuck to a specific asset and you have to use that look and style. You can create your own completely. So this is the magical gradient effect. If you haven't seen this technique, it's 3 parts, pretty simple. We're going to create a new layer, Command or Control Shift N, and we're going to call this screen because it's going to be a screen layer, and I'm going to change the mode to screen as well. Click OK. Now we're going to do that again, Command or Control Shift N, a new layer, and I'm just going to name this painting, and we're going to leave it the mode as a normal layer. Lastly, I am going to create a gradient map adjustment layer. You can do it with the little circle icon down here at the bottom. Click gradient map, and we don't want that. I'm just going to select a random one here. So the key thing about this gradient map is that it needs to start with black and preferably end with white. It doesn't need to end with white, but for this effect, I think it looks best. But for the effect to actually work and display properly, the first color needs to be black. So just keep that in mind. It's an important step. Otherwise, you might be wondering why it's not working. So we'll leave it as this for now. And then we are going to take the last two layers we created, the gradient map and the painting layer, which is a normal layer, right click those and do create clipping mask. So we're clipping it to the screen layer. I'm going to select those three layers that we created and do Command or Control G to group them and name this magic effect. So the reason I'm doing this is because these three layers are going to be sticking together for this effect. And I want to keep it separate from all the other layers we have. So I like to group my layers and keep them nice and tidy. So from here, it's that whole painting effect. And if you haven't seen it before, basically what you want to do is you want to select white. Oh my goodness, I did the thing. The screen layer needs to be filled in with black. Another crucial step that I somehow forgot. So go to the screen layer, get your paint bucket tool, and just fill it in with black. That is a crucial step too, or it won't display properly. So now that we have our screen layer filled in with black, our blank painting layer, and our gradient map, and those last two layers clipped to the screen layer, we're ready to paint. So if you select white and you paint in white, you can take your smudge tool and you can kind of blend it into this magic-y effect. You can also use a soft airbrush sort of tool and get this effect. So the varying layers of opacity create different colors within the gradient map. So you can create a lot of magic effects with this. Like I said, I did a previous challenge on this, but we're going to be creating a portal effect with this same layers setup. So I'm going to go ahead and create or grab a hard round brush. You do this with a mouse just fine. I suggest putting your smoothing up quite a bit so you can get kind of smoother lines. You can just vary the lines as you need to. So once you smudge those, you can get these thin lines, you can get these thicker lines. The more you smudge it, the more the colors will kind of change in the gradient. So I don't want this fiery effect. I actually created a gradient for this, and you can see the setup of this gradient, and you can see the gradient I'm about to use. So this is how I arranged it. It has 5 colors. I kind of have this smooth transition from the light tones to the dark tones, and I actually saved this. So that's the gradient I'm going to be using. You can always change your gradient after the fact. So if you're using this technique and you don't like how it looks, I actually tweaked the gradient until it looked just right. So I'm actually going to use the Symmetry Tool here. It's the little butterfly icon at the top when you have the brush tool selected right here. I'm going to do vertical symmetry, and I'm going to test if this is actually symmetrical. So I'm going to do like a center mark, select it on the right. It's pretty close. I think that's close enough. You can always tweak it. You can always do vertical and then use the arrows to like move it left or right. But then I just moved it further off, I think. So vertical, tap, tap to the right, press enter. See if it lines up with the edges. It's not bad. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like this little glowing outer effect. I guess what I mean is I'm going to frame this image. So this hard seam, I want to kind of frame it with this sort of glow. And then when you switch to the Smudge Tool, the Symmetry Tool doesn't actually work. So just be aware of that. But let's just create this as a frame. So I'm going to go a little thicker. This is just going to be used to cover the seam. And then I'm going to do a new layer for like all the magic that we paint. I also want to mention to everyone, the smudge tool I'm using is fairly specific. Some smudge tools you use may not have that same effect. So I'm using a soft round brush. The strength is set to 50% at the top. And the scattering is actually checked on and I believe set to 10% in the brush settings. So you can try out different smudge tools, but I like this one because if you use it at a fairly decent size, it kind of obliterates the edges and lets you get a really cool wispy magic effect. But you may want to try your own out. And keep in mind, once you turn on scattering, it's going to create a fairly, like if you use it at a large size, it's going to lag. It's going to be very system intensive. I don't turn the smudge tool very high. Like if I were to do this, it would lag pretty hard. So I like to keep it fairly small. But keep that in mind, scattering and spacing do that. So if you're having lag issues, try lowering the scattering or lowering the spacing of the brush in the brush settings. Now, let's create a new layer. So I'll name this border, and then I'll just do magic or paint. So this one we're just gonna kind of paint crazily. So from here, I'm just gonna be pretty wild with it. I want to get like a magic wispy effect, so I'm just gonna kind of blob it in and smudge it around and see what happens. Playing with the smudge tool is really fun with this effect, so try it out, see if you like it, and kind of see different effects it gets. But you can already see the gradient map going to work. As we smudge this to different levels of opacity, it creates different like intensities and colors. The more you smudge it, the more it's gonna go to those darker colors, and you can kind of get like wispy with it. So I'm gonna increase the size of my smudge tool a little bit and get like that ghostly wispy effect. Also bonus points if anyone can tell me the game that inspired this particular portal. So I looked at, I was looking at portals like from Portal 2, the video game. If anyone's played Portal 2, great game. But can anyone name the game that this portal, or the one that I showed in the beginning, is supposed to be kind of mimicking? Bonus points if you do. So from here, it's really just a lot of this. I'll try not to spend too long, but you can spend a lot of time just getting these kind of wispy effects, building it up. It's a lot of build up, I think. Portal Combat. And that's not it, but we should make that game. Pac-Man, so close. I don't see any cake. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a lie. So at some point, I may want to turn off the Symmetry Tool to get like a more natural asymmetrical effect. But I'm really just playing around. I'm doing some of these shapes like jumping off. So if you want kind of this like, these like little electrical arcs or whatever, that's kind of fun. You can smudge that a bit. You get this cool wispy magical effects. Going for a little asymmetry, so smudging some differently than others. The fact that the smudge tool doesn't work with the Symmetry tool already kind of gives you a certain level of asymmetry, so there is that. But the Symmetry tool can definitely help speed up the workflow again. And again, it's that little butterfly icon right at the top. Would you mind showing us your PC specifications? Unfortunately, I don't think I can now. Don't quite have time during this challenge, but oh man, I just got a new CPU. I don't have as much RAM as I should. I got a new motherboard, I got a new CPU, and I had to get new RAM because of that. But it's not actually that powerful. I need to upgrade my RAM. I think I'm 16 gigs of RAM. So that's kind of looking cool. I think that looks pretty neat. If we want to, we can get like any wispy bits coming towards the center. Pong. Come on, guys. Okay, Clever's got it. Thank you, Clever. Clever's got my back. Yeah, I've been playing some Diablo 2 Resurrected, so the remake of Diablo 2, so this is kind of what a town portal looks like. I realized I was being inspired by it. So I'm just gonna scribble around. I'm really just trying to get this mass of like white clouds in the middle, this white cloudy type of stuff, and then have some cool like bits arcing off. But you can play around with shapes any way you want. It's your portal. Go crazy, wispy bits kind of coming off, smudge them around, see what happens. You can change the strength of your smudge tool actually. Crank that up to like 80, 90, and you just look at that. It goes crazy. 90 is too much. Let's go to like 70. You can play around with like different wispy effects. So play with the smudge tool. Play with the brushes. You can use like particle brushes and smudge them a bit to get sort of like spark-like effects. That works really well. So I'm going to make a couple marks here and call it for this, and we can move on. But, keep in mind, this is the bulk of the portal effect here, so really go nuts with it if you want. But that looks pretty neat. especially like this wispy bit at the top. I kind of like blue that's fading off. Put a little bit at the bottom. Yeah, that looks pretty neat to me. All right. Let's turn off the symmetry. Just click the butterfly icon. You can do symmetry off. You can also do symmetry hide, which is great. And then if you need to use that again, you can always go to last use symmetry. So very useful tools. Yeah. Making a Diablo portal. What's going on, Cody? Good to see you. Cody's got it. All right, so I'm going to minimize my magic effect here. And we are going to make this fit in with the scene a little bit more. So I think a couple things we can do is we could change the settings of the image inside the portal to make that pop. We could darken down the city. But I think a couple of things I want to do first, because this effect I think will be a little bit more crucial, is to make it look like the portal is actually affecting the environment. Currently, it kind of seems out of place because the lighting of the scene is so warm. There's no blue light being cast or anything. One thing you could actually do is do Control or Command J to duplicate that entire magic effect layer, merge the group, and turn this, there's our effect by itself, and then turn this into a screen layer. And then you could take the Move tool, and you could just free transform it by holding Command or Control. You know, shift it around if the reflection needed to be like that, if it needed to be down here, you know, something like that. If it was like on water or a wet street or somewhere where a reflection like that would be appropriate, maybe you could give it a bit of a blur because reflections are typically blurred out a little bit more. But I think for our purposes, for this specific image, we won't be doing that. So if you are using something, a scene that would have a reflection, you can use that technique. But what we're going to do is we're going to create an adjustment layer for hue and saturation. And I'm going to clip that, right-click that, clip it to the city. So just put it right above the city layer. And then I think I'm going to make a screen layer on top of that and clip it as well. So Command or Control Shift N. We'll do, I'll just name it screen or glow. Maybe we'll name it screen glow. I like to know what like layer types I'm using just by the name sometimes. Set that to screen. So let's clip that as well. Let's go ahead and try the hue and saturation. All right, there we go. So I'm going to play around with this. I want to do colorize. Click this little thing at the bottom, colorize. And let's see, like, what's a cool bluish tone? It's pretty good, like 221 or so. Saturation, might want to crank that up just for that blue glow. You do like 50 or so. Yeah, 56. Maybe I even want to make it a little bit brighter. Maybe just like 12. So that's not too bad. So what I'm going to do is go to this mask layer that's white right here. Save it real quick. That white layer here, and I'm going to fill it in with black to negate all that, to conceal it all. Black conceals, white reveals. So we're going to go to white now, and I'm going to select an airbrush. And I'm just going to kind of paint it in down below. Anything that I think would kind of have this like blue cast. I'm using a very large brush to get a very smooth gradual gradient. But I just want to give like anything around it a sort of blue cast. We can put our magic effect back on just to see if it looks kind of convincing. And from here, we can kind of just play around with the screen layer, try selecting different levels of intensity. I think very saturated and pretty bright works quite well. But just give it like a bit of glow like that. We could even go brighter and see if that looks good. Just directly below it. So the hue and saturation extends further than the screen does. And if that's too much, you can always ease off. I feel like that may be a bit too saturated. But you know, play around and see what you can get there. So I think I'm just about out of time. What I would like to do from here, if I had a little bit more, would be maybe to darken down the city and create a little bit more contrast between the city image and that. I think there is a lot of contrast already. but I think doing like, maybe I'll do it real quick, just an exposure layer would be nice, just to darken down the city a bit and really make that portal pop. So that's all we have time for. This is definitely a challenge that you can spend a long time on, really finessing, adding different brushes, playing around with the smudge tool. You can build these like kind of magical effects up as much as you want. Feel free to use like a photo asset too if there's some sort of cool glowing ring that you want to use. Try combining these effects. But I like how this effect in particular gives you the freedom to warp it and mold it in any way you see fit. You can use overlays of like spark images, so really combine these effects, but this one can be like the bulk of your magical effect and give you a lot of flexibility. So if you want to join these challenges, head over to the landing page and make sure to join the Discord, share these challenges. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Thanks so much for joining me today, everyone. It was great to see y'all, and I will see you tomorrow for another challenge as we get closer and closer to the end. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great one. I'll see you next time.